Why was she still alive when the others were? The question echoed in Alexis Morgan's mind almost every morning, usually before the coffee reached her lips, always before the sun cleared the mountains. That morning in Granite Falls was no different. The first light of dawn painted the Colorado peaks in strokes of gold and amber, soft against the rugged horizon. A quiet town, a still lake, the kind of place where people believed trouble couldn't find them. But Alexis knew better. Trouble didn't need an invitation. It always arrived on its own. She sat at the edge of lake, boots dangling above the rippling water. A thin thread of steam rose from her chipped coffee mug, carrying the bitter scent that kept her tethered to the present. Her hands, and rougher than most women her age, clutched the mug as though it might anchor her to this fragile peace. Cold bit through her jacket, but she welcomed it. The chill was proof she was still here, still breathing. Pain, cold, heat, those were anchors. Memories, though memories had teeth. From her pocket she pulled a small piece of metal worn smooth with time. A dog tag. Cole. The name glinted faintly in the morning sun. She rubbed her thumb over the letters, over and over, the way she had for years. Nate's name was carved into her palms as surely as it was stamped in that steel. "Was it worth it, Nate?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the gentle lap of water against the dock pylons. "Was my life worth yours?" Silence answered her, as it always did. Only the water moved, carrying away words that no one else would ever hear. 5 years since Valley, since the ambush, since she had crawled through blood and smoke while her family, her team, died buying her time. 5 years of running, hiding, of pretending to be someone she was. In Granite Falls, people knew her only as the quiet bartender at Whiskey River, the woman who never talked about herself, who never let anyone close, who always chose a seat with her back against the wall. It was a safe identity, a mask, and for a time it had worked. She picked up a flat stone, turned it over in her palm, and flicked it across the lake. 1, 2, 3, 4 skips before it disappeared beneath the dark water. Gone, like them. "Some days I think I should gone with you," she said to the tag. "Other days I'm just tired, tired of being a ghost." The buzz of her phone cut through the morning stillness, snapping her back. She sighed, tucked the tag away, and checked the screen. A message from her boss at Whiskey River. "Need you to come in early. Problem with delivery." Alexis finished her coffee in one last gulp, set the mug aside, and rose. Another day of pretending, another day of surviving. The drive into town was short. The mountains loomed in her mirror, steady and unchanging, while Granite Falls slowly came alive with scattered morning routines. By the time she pulled up to the bar, the weight of her past was back in its box, locked beneath her ribs where no one could see it. Whiskey River was more than a bar. It was a relic. The wood beams still carried the dust of history, the stone fireplace a monument to simpler times. Reed, its owner, was already in the back, frowning at a clipboard when Alexis walked in. He was 65 now, slower in movement but still sharp in mind. His blue eyes bright beneath the bushy white brows. "There you are," he said, relief softening the creases in his face. "Sorry to drag you in early." "No problem," Alexis nodded at the clipboard. "Delivery issues." He sighed, rubbed a hand through thinning hair. "Distributor sent half our order. Says there's a shortage of that Kentucky bourbon the tourists love. But that's not the real problem." He hesitated, and Alexis, sensing the change in his tone, went still. "I had a visit this morning," he continued, voice grim. "From those motorcycle fellows, the Iron Wolves." The name landed like a stone in her gut. She shifted subtly, posture hardening. "What did they want?" "Protection money, $2,000 a month, said they were offering community protection services." His mouth twisted. "Protection from what? From them, I expect." Alexis studied him, the way the defiance in his words barely concealed the tension in his shoulders. Wasn't easily rattled, but this had rattled him. "I told them to take a hike," he said. "Might not have been wise, but I'm too old to pay tribute to thugs." A cold, dangerous spark flickered in Alexis's chest, had given her a job when she had nothing, never pressed when she deflected questions, respected her silence. For 4 years, he had been the closest thing she had to family, and the thought of anyone threatening him made something old and lethal stir within her. "What did they say when you refused?" she asked quietly. "That Granite Falls is changing, that they'd be back to continue our conversation." Alexis nodded once, mind already sketching out scenarios, escape routes, defensive positions. The muscle memory was automatic, the habits of survival. She forced a small smile. "Don't worry about it. I'll handle the delivery calls. You should take it easy today." He gave her a knowing look. "I didn't tell you so you could worry, Alexis. I've dealt with bullies before." "I know." She helped him up from the chair, but her voice was soft. "Humor me anyway." When he left the room, Alexis lingered a moment longer, rolling her shoulders against the tension gathering there. The Iron Wolves. Trouble had finally found Granite Falls, and once again she wasn't sure if she was running from the past or standing right in its shadow. By the afternoon, the bar was alive. Locals nursed beers at the counter while tourists passed through on their way to the park. Laughter blended with the low hum of country music from the jukebox. To anyone else, it was a normal evening. To Alexis, it was a battlefield in disguise. She moved behind the bar, efficient, precise. She poured drinks, smiled politely, listened without revealing anything of herself. And all the while her eyes tracked the room, the main entrance, the restrooms, the emergency exit. 4 years of peace had not dulled her instincts. Every new face was assessed, weighed, dismissed, or remembered. And then at 6:17 p.m., the door opened. 3 men walked in wearing leather cuts emblazoned with the Iron Wolves insignia. Conversation faltered. Heads turned. The air shifted, sharp and tense. Alexis didn't pause. She continued drying a glass, but her senses sharpened like a blade honed to an edge. The man in the lead matched description, Carter. Tall, broad, muscle wrapped in arrogance. Beard down to his chest, shaved head gleaming under the lights. His companions flanked him with the restless energy of men desperate to prove themselves. They took their time crossing the room. Carter's eyes swept the crowd, daring anyone to challenge him, before locking on Alexis. "What can I get you?" she asked, voice steady, neutral. 3 beers. He slapped a 20 on the bar, and a conversation with the old man. "'S not here." It was a lie, but one that might buy time. "Is that right?" Carter leaned in, forearms thick on the counter. "Funny, his truck's still out there." "He's not available." Before she could move, Carter's hand shot out, clamping down on her wrist. His grip was iron, his smirk practiced, a show of dominance, a dare. And something inside her woke. Her mind mapped responses in an instant. Pressure point at the thumb, a strike to the trachea, the bar edge for leverage. Dozens of ways to end this. "I suggest you let go," she said, her voice dropping into that low register. The warning one. The one men like Carter never heard until too late. He didn't notice. They never did. "Or what, sweetheart?" he sneered, glancing at his men. The rest of the bar went still, silence tightening like a noose. In one fluid motion, Alexis grabbed a shot glass, slammed it against the bar until it shattered, and held the jagged edge against the artery in his wrist, inches from ending him. "Or," she said evenly, "we find out if you bleed as fast as you talk." For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Shock flickered across Carter's face, replaced by calculation. His men tensed, hands drifting toward weapons. And out of the corner of her eye, Alexis caught another movement. A man in the corner booth had shifted, his hand disappearing beneath his jacket. Not a biker. His posture was different. Military. Slowly, Carter released her wrist, lifted his hands in mock surrender. "Just having some fun." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "No need to get worked up." Alexis set the broken glass aside, calm as if nothing had happened. Your beers, she said, sliding them across. 15. Carter threw the 20 down, leaving the change. Keep it. Service industry must be tough these days. His gaze swept the bar. Shame if something happened to this place. Lot of old wood, probably a fire hazard. The threat lingered in the air as he and his men carried their beers to a corner table. Conversation resumed, hesitant, but the tension never fully faded. Alexis wiped the bar, hands steady, though her pulse still surged with the aftermath of adrenaline. She had slipped, shown too much. The quiet bartender wasn't supposed to know how to dismantle men twice her size. Quite a show, came a voice at her side. It was the man from the corner booth, now seated at the bar, whiskey glass in hand. His build was athletic, his hair touched with gray, eyes sharp and assessing. Military bearing barely concealed. Just doing my job, Alexis replied, defenses already rising. They teach that in bartending school now. A faint smile touched his lips. Threat neutralization. Her jaw tightened. What can I get you? Another drink. He slid the glass forward. Bourbon neat. She poured it, felt his eyes on her the entire time. Not curious, not lustful, but recognizing. MAGA, he said, almost casually. With some modifications. The wrist control was textbook, the glass improvisation, clever. The glass froze in her hand. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. He sipped his bourbon, gaze steady. Unit 9, Chimera program. Hybrid training, military foundation with street adaptations. They favored operators like you. Her heart stuttered. Instinct screamed at her to run. Her go-bag was in her truck. She could be across the state line in 2 hours. He raised a hand. Relax, I'm not here to expose you or cause trouble. Then what do you want? Westbrook, he set his glass down carefully. Cole was my brother. The glass slipped from Alexis's hand and shattered behind the bar, but the sound was drowned out by the roar in her ears. His brother here, in Granite Falls. Her past, it seemed, had finally come knocking. How could he be here? The question slammed into Alexis harder than Carter's grip ever had. Cole's brother. The name she hadn't spoken aloud in years was suddenly breathing across the bar, alive again in someone else's voice. Her pulse thundered. Memories clawed to the surface. Bloodied in the sand, shouting orders she didn't want to obey, telling her to run. She had run. And now his brother was here looking at her like she was the answer to questions she'd never wanted to ask. That's not possible, she managed. Her voice felt foreign, hollow. Nate never mentioned a brother. He wouldn't have. Westbrook's tone was steady, but there was something beneath it, regret, shame. We weren't speaking when he deployed, not then. She wanted to argue, wanted to dismiss him as another stranger with too much curiosity. But his eyes, the same quiet intensity had carried, tempered by years of loss, rooted her to the spot. I've been looking for you a long time, Sergeant Morgan said. The title was like a gunshot in her chest. No one had called her that in 5 years. Her mask slipped. For a moment she was Alexis Morgan, bartender. She was Sergeant Alexis Morgan, Chimera operator, the only survivor of Valley, the ghost walking among the living. You should leave, she said, steadying her voice, gripping the bar as if it could hold her together. I will, replied, but we need to talk. I know what happened to Steam, and I know you're the only survivor. Before she could answer, the crack of shattering glass cut through the room. In the corner, Carter had smashed a beer bottle against the table. He rose, fury etched into every line of his body. His companion stood with him, faces twisted with aggression. This isn't over, Carter growled, pointing at Alexis. Not by a long shot. They stormed out, the door slamming behind them. The remaining patrons shifted nervously, gathering coats, leaving bills on tables. They didn't want to be part of whatever storm was brewing. Hadn't moved. His eyes tracked the bikers until the door closed. Then he looked back at Alexis. They'll be back with more. I can handle them, she said, collecting broken glasses, hiding the tremor in her hands. Maybe, aloud, but there's more going on here than a protection racket. He stood, dropped money on the counter for the unfinished bourbon, and slid a card toward her. White, simple, a phone number, his name. "When you're ready to talk," he said, "call me." And then he left, as quietly as he had arrived. Silence lingered in his wake. Alexis tucked the card beneath the bar mat where only she would know it existed, but she felt its weight in her pocket alongside's tag. Both names pressed against her heart, one from the past, one from the present, both refusing to be ignored. The night was crisp when Alexis locked up Whiskey River after midnight, had gone home earlier, muttering about arthritis and cold weather. She had insisted she could close on her own, but the silence outside pressed against her skin like a warning. Granite Falls slept, storefronts dark, cars parked, streets empty, too empty. She sensed them before she heard them. The subtle shift of night air, the faint purr of engines idling out of sight, the hushed murmur of men who didn't know how to whisper. Predators waiting. She didn't change pace, didn't betray the alertness flooding her veins. Her eyes flicked across the terrain, mapping options. Alley to her right, escape route. Fire escape to her left, high ground. Construction site down the block, cover. Running would trigger them. Confrontation was inevitable. "Hey, bar bitch." Carter's voice oozed from the shadows ahead. He stepped into the glow of a streetlight, knife glinting in his hand. Four more men fanned out behind him, brass knuckles, sneers, hungry eyes. Alexis stopped, breath steady, heart not. "That wasn't very hospitable earlier," Carter drawled, pulling leather gloves over his fists. "Thought we'd have a word about customer service." "It's been a long night," Alexis said evenly. "Why don't we all go home and forget about it?" They laughed, ugly, eager. One of the newcomers spat, "Girls like you need lessons." Her gaze flicked over them once. Knife, brass, numbers, 5 against 1, bad odds, but she'd lived through worse. "Last chance," she warned. Her voice dropped into the register that should have told them everything. They didn't notice. They never did. The first lunged. She pivoted, redirected his momentum, drove her elbow into his solar plexus. He collapsed against the hood of a parked car, gasping for breath. She seized his wrist, slammed his face into steel. Bone cracked. He dropped. The second came fast. She struck his knee with a precise kick. Ligaments tore. He screamed, collapsing in a heap. Carter roared, slashing with his knife. She read his pattern, wild, sloppy, but dangerous in close quarters. She evaded once, twice, then stepped inside his guard. Her body caught his wrist, forcing it into her ribs. Pain burned, but she harnessed it. Her palm struck his elbow, pain shot up his arm. The knife clattered to the ground. She followed with 2 strikes, throat and chest, calculated to incapacitate but not kill. He crumpled, choking. The fourth clipped her ribs with a glancing blow. Pain flared white. She turned it into fury, swept his legs, struck the base of his skull. He dropped unconscious. The fifth saw the carnage and fled, motorcycle engine howling, as he vanished into the night. Silence fell, broken only by the groans of broken men. 30 seconds, that's all it had taken. Alexis retrieved Carter's knife, flipped it in her hand, and tossed it into a storm drain. Then she crouched beside him, voice quiet. "Tell your friends what happened. Tell them this was me being restrained." She left them in the street and walked home, hands steady, heart pounding with a familiar rush she had prayed she'd never feel again. Peace was over. The iron wolves wouldn't forgive humiliation, and she had revealed too much. Her cover as the quiet bartender was gone. Inside her apartment, she locked the door, checked windows, secured everything with practiced precision. Then she sat on the bed, pulled tag from her pocket and stared at it. "I'm sorry, Nate," she whispered. I tried to leave it all behind." Her eyes burned. She closed them, began the breathing exercises they'd taught her long ago. Inhale, hold, exhale. Sometimes it kept the nightmares away. Sometimes. But when she slept, the past tore through her. The desert heat shimmered. The Humvee crawled along a rocky road, sat in the passenger seat, scanning the ridge line. She remembered the knot in her gut, the unease she couldn't shake. "Too exposed," she'd said. "This doesn't feel right." He'd nodded, grim. "Intel says the target will pass this valley in the hour. We need eyes." She asked to send scouts. He agreed, but it was already too late. The glint of metal on the ridge. "Contact." The explosion lifted the Humvee off the road. It rolled, screamed, fire and dust swallowing everything. Alexis crawled through shattered glass, shoulder screaming. Two teammates motionless outside. Martinez alive but bleeding. Dazed, blood running down his face. "Ambush," he gasped. "Get the radio backup." She called, static, bullets ripping the frame apart. And then relief at the sound of approaching vehicles. But they weren't American. They were Taliban technicals, rolling in with mounted guns. "They're not ours," she'd whispered. His eyes hardened, he knew. "Get Martinez to cover," he ordered. "That's an order, Sergeant." She had hesitated. She had wanted to stay, but the look in his eyes, the quiet finality, forced her to move. She dragged Martinez, bullets stitching the ground, ran for cover, looked back in time to see throw the pin on a grenade. The explosion ripped the Humvee apart. With it, she fought. For 40 minutes she fought until helicopters thundered in, until Martinez slipped into unconsciousness, until her own leg bled and her body screamed. And when they lifted her away, she looked back at the burning wreck, the faces she would never see again. Smoke pointed like accusing fingers toward the survivor. Toward her. Alexis jolted awake, sheets soaked, chest heaving. The dream had teeth tonight. The sound of rotor blades still rang in her ears. She pressed a hand to her ribs, found the faint bruise where one of the bikers had hit her earlier. Not deep, not compared to the scars beneath her clothes. She dragged herself into the bathroom, turned on the shower and stood beneath the hot spray. Steam filled the room, but the water couldn't wash away the guilt, or the fear, or the truth she carried like shrapnel inside her. Her reflection in the mirror looked back at her, hard eyes, guarded, haunted. Granite Falls thought she was a bartender, but in truth she was a weapon, one she had promised never to use again. And now that promise was broken. Morning light crept into Whiskey River when she arrived early, coffee still bitter on her tongue. Was already there, waiting, worry etched deep in his lined face. "They came looking for you," he said, voice low. "Iron wolves, 2 of them, wanted to know where you live, who you are. Said one of their boys got jumped by a woman who looked an awful lot like you." Alexis didn't flinch, didn't show the storm in her gut. She poured coffee, leaned on the bar, voice calm. "And what did you tell them?" "That they had the wrong person," eyes hardened. "That you're just a bartender." "Thank you," she said softly. "They didn't believe me." His hands tightened on his mug. "They said they'd be back." She sipped her coffee, thought about the men broken in the street, thought about Westbrook's eyes steady and unyielding, thought about whispering his last order in the dust. The ghosts weren't going anywhere. And neither was she. Why hadn't she told the truth? The thought gnawed at Alexis as she stood in the quiet of Whiskey River's storage room, hands braced against the cool wood of the counter. Deserved answers. He'd trusted her, given her work, respected her silence. But how could she tell him that the woman he thought was his bartender was in fact a soldier who had lived through an ambush that should have killed her? That she had trained for missions most people would never know existed? That her past wasn't just dangerous, it was contagious? Anyone near her risked being pulled into it. She didn't want that for. But the Iron Wolves weren't going to give her a choice. The back door banged open, appeared with someone at his side. A young woman with curly brown hair escaping from a ponytail, her sweatshirt wrinkled from travel. Alexis recognized her immediately. Said, his voice softer than Alexis had heard in days, "What are you doing here?" Dad breathed, wrapping her arms around him. I heard about those bikers. Mrs. told me at the gas station. Why didn't you tell me? It's nothing, muttered, awkward in her embrace. Just some rough characters throwing their weight around. Nothing, pulled back, hands on her hips. The whole town's talking about it. Her eyes cut to Alexis, apologetic but searching. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. It's good to see you, Alexis said quietly. How's medical school? Brutal, admitted, but I love it. Then her gaze sharpened. Dad, why don't you report these guys? Isn't that what the sheriff is for? Sighed, sheriff's hands are tied. His deputies are outnumbered. Until someone files charges that stick, his options are limited. Shook her head in disbelief. That's ridiculous, so we just let them terrorize people. Before anyone could answer, the front door slammed open with a crash. 5 men strode in, leather cuts gleaming, and with them a man who commanded attention the moment he entered. Vincent Harding. Unlike the others, he didn't wear colors marked with patches. His only symbol was a silver wolf's head ring on his finger. His salt and pepper hair was cropped short, his face carved in hard lines. His eyes, cold, assessing, took in the room like a predator scanning for prey. Read, Harding said, voice surprisingly soft. Stepped forward, shoulders stiff. Bars closed until 11. I'm not here for a drink. Harding smiled without warmth. Vincent Harding, I own the Iron Wolves. Seems we have business to discuss. The other men spread subtly across the room. Alexis counted weapons beneath jackets, studied their postures. This wasn't a random visit. This was intimidation, measured and rehearsed. His chin lifted. I don't have business with you. That's where you're wrong. Harding's gaze slid to Alexis, lingered for a beat, then returned to, this town needs protection. Protection costs money. It's simple. We have a sheriff, said firmly. Harding's laugh was humorless. Sheriff, that man couldn't protect a birthday cake from a toddler. He gestured, and Carter stepped forward, face still bruised from the alley. 3 of my boys were assaulted last night, Harding continued, and Carter says it was your bartender. All eyes turned to Alexis. There's been a mistake, she said evenly, layering just enough nervousness into her tone. I went straight home after work. That's her, Carter snarled, pointing. That's the one who jumped us. Harding's gaze sharpened. You saying my man is lying? I'm saying there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Harding repeated it like a taste on his tongue. Then he moved quick, deliberate, snatched a bottle from the bar, smashed it against the edge. The jagged glass gleamed in his hand as he lunged at. Alexis didn't think. Her body moved, training taking over. She vaulted the bar, caught Harding's arm mid-swing, twisted. The bottle wrenched away from and hit the floor. She struck Harding's wrist with precision. The glass shattered, his hand spasmed. For a heartbeat, shock flashed across his face. Then he swung with his other fist, a haymaker packed with power. Alexis blocked, slipped inside his guard, and drove her elbow into his chest. The room froze. Harding's men bristled, but Harding himself raised a hand. His eyes locked on Alexis, narrowing. Who the hell are you? He asked, curiosity threaded through the anger. Just a bartender who doesn't like seeing her friends threatened. No, Harding said slowly, shaking his head. That wasn't bar fight, that was professional. A slow smile spread across his face. Interesting, very interesting. And then, to everyone's surprise, he stepped back, straightened his jacket. We'll continue this conversation another time, he said calmly, when fewer eyes are watching. He nodded to Alexis. You've bought yourself a day, use it wisely. Then he turned, and the Iron Wolves left as suddenly as they had entered. The silence left behind was heavy, stared at Alexis wide-eyed. What the hell was that? Alexis picked up the shards of the broken bottle, her expression unreadable. Self-defense classes. Classes? His disbelief was sharp. You moved like something out of a movie. His gaze was different, quieter, sharper. "Alexis," he said softly, "what aren't you telling us?" For a moment she wanted to tell him everything. About Afghanistan, about Chimera, about coal, but the words tangled in her throat. "It's complicated," she said finally. "Not something I like to talk about." "You'd better start." His voice was steady, but there was worry beneath it. "Because those men will be back, and they won't underestimate you again." Alexis knew he was right. Harding's curiosity was dangerous. He had seen enough to know she wasn't who she pretended to be. Men like him never let mysteries walk free. And sooner or later, he would force her hand. The knock came later that night, after he had locked up and had gone upstairs to rest. Alexis opened the door to find Sheriff. His uniform strained against his stocky frame, hat in hand, sweat at his temples. "Alexis," he nodded awkwardly. "You got reports," said flatly. "The wolves were here." Shifted his weight. "Everything all right?" "Just a disagreement," replied. He didn't mention Alexis's intervention. Sighed. "Look, I know you're proud, but these guys are serious. 3 hospitalizations in the county already from folks who stood up to them." "So we're supposed to pay?" demanded from the stairs. "That's your official advice?" His face tightened. "I'm saying pick your battles. I've got 4 deputies covering this whole county. The wolves have 20 men, all armed, plus associates. Until they commit a major crime I can prove, my hands are tied." Alexis studied him carefully, the tremor in his hands, the way his eyes didn't meet hers. Fear was one thing, but this smelled like something deeper. "Has anyone filed a report?" she asked. "A few." Eyes flicked away. Then they walked it back. "Witnesses get amnesia when the wolves show up." He replaced his hat. "Just be careful. If they come back, call me." After he left, locked the door behind him. His voice was low. "He's scared. I've never seen David like that before." "It's more than fear," Alexis murmured. Her gut told her the sheriff was compromised, but she didn't say it aloud. What mattered now it was Harding. And Harding wasn't going to wait long before coming back. That night Alexis pulled on dark clothes, strapped a small folding knife to her boot, and slipped a canister of pepper spray into her pocket. The quiet bartender was gone. The operator was awake. She borrowed a motorcycle, drove out of town under the cover of darkness, and headed toward the outskirts. Intelligence gathering, step 1 of any mission. And though her body had been retired from the field for 4 years, her mind slid back into it with disturbing ease. The Iron Wolves had set up in an abandoned sawmill. Rumors had whispered it for months. She confirmed it now. 15 motorcycles parked outside. 5 trucks. Guards at the door, sloppy, smoking, talking too much. She ditched the bike in the trees and moved on foot. Silent, careful, years of training returning with each step. Circling to the back, she found a loading dock door cracked open. Voices spilled out. "Don't care how you do it," Harding's voice said. "Reed will sell one way or another." "Old man stubborn," another voice replied. "Then hurt him, not enough to kill him, just enough to send a message." Alexis's fists clenched. "And that bartender," Harding added. "Something's off about her, already working on it. Got a contact at the VA checking records." Her stomach dropped. Her military history, sealed, redacted, wasn't entirely untouchable if they dug deep enough. "What about the product?" Harding asked. "Arriving tomorrow night," a man said. "Blackwood confirmed the drop. Wants additional security after what happened in Bristol." Alexis froze. "Blackwood." Her pulse thundered. She eased closer, peering through a grime-covered window. Harding sat at a table with 5 others, cash stacked between them, weapons laid out, and standing at the center overseeing it all was a man she knew. Silver hair at the temples, civilian clothes cut too well for a biker, command in every line of his posture. Colonel Blackwood. Her former commanding officer. the man who had arrived too late to save, the man whose decisions had always seemed off. Now here he was, smiling with criminals, her suspicions into something colder than rage. This wasn't coincidence. And if he recognized her, her cover, her life in Granite Falls, it was already hanging by a thread. A twig snapped under her boot. "Wait," one of the guards muttered. What was that? Flashlight beams cut across the yard. Alexis froze, heart hammering. "Probably a coyote," another guard said after a moment. The light swept past her hiding place, then receded. She exhaled silently, waited, moved. By the time she slipped back into the trees, her mind was racing. The wolves weren't just a gang, they were part of something bigger. And Blackwood was at the center of it. What did it mean, seeing him there? The question pulsed through Alexis as she crouched in the dark tree line, staring back at the faint glow spilling from the sawmill windows. Colonel Blackwood, the man she had once trusted with her life, the man whose orders had sent Cole and the rest of their team into Valley. And now here he was, not in uniform, not in Washington, but in an abandoned sawmill in Colorado, drinking whiskey with criminals and discussing shipments that smelled more like contraband than logistics. It didn't add up, or maybe it did. Her gut had always whispered that something about that mission was wrong. The timing, the intelligence, the silence on the radio when they called for backup, the way reinforcements had come hours too late only to find ashes where lives had been. She had buried those suspicions, told herself she was paranoid, that it was grief twisting her judgment. But seeing Blackwood with the wolves, it breathed life into every doubt she'd suffocated. The night pressed against her ears, crickets, a rustle of leaves, somewhere in the distance the low rumble of a truck on the highway. Alexis forced herself to breathe evenly, counting the beats. She couldn't unravel now, not here, not with armed men 30 yards away. She backed out the way she had come, every step careful. Branches shifted overhead, shadows weaving like ghosts. When she reached her motorcycle, she paused. Her fingers lingered on the ignition. She wanted to ride into the night, never look back. She wanted to leave Granite Falls before Blackwood's eyes found her. But running wouldn't erase what she'd seen. And if Blackwood was moving product through the wolves, Granite Falls was already more than a town under threat. It was a front line. By the time she returned to her apartment, dawn was breaking. She stripped off her jacket, sat heavily on the edge of the bed, and stared at the dog tag in her hand. His name, his sacrifice. "What would you do?" she whispered. The silence answered like it always did. But this time she thought she knew. The next day at Whiskey River moved slower than usual, shoulders heavy. Hovered near him, worry carved into her features. The tension of last night's confrontation hadn't left the building. It hung in the air like smoke. Alexis poured a glass of water, set it in front of. "You don't have to stay here," she said quietly. "Not with them circling." Shook her head. "I'm not leaving Dad." "Then you need to be careful." Studied her. "You talk like someone who's seen this before." Alexis didn't answer. Her silence stretched too long and caught it. "You're not just a bartender, are you?" Alexis's hand stilled on the counter. She forced a small smile. "Aren't we all more than we look?" Before could press, the door opened. Westbrook stepped inside. Alexis stiffened. She hadn't seen him since he'd dropped his card on the bar. But now, in daylight, he looked different. Less like a stranger, more like someone who belonged to the shadows of her past. He approached slowly, hands in pockets, eyes flicking once toward and before settling on Alexis. "Can we talk?" he asked. She hesitated, then gestured toward the back office. Watched them go, suspicion in his gaze, but said nothing. Inside, the room was cramped, papers stacked high on a desk, the smell of old wood and ink in the air. Closed the door softly. "You went to the sawmill last night." It wasn't a question. Alexis froze. "How do you know?" "Because I was watching it too." leaned against the desk, arms folded. I saw you slip in, and I saw you slip out. She felt the sting of irritation. She hadn't been as invisible as she'd thought. And what did you see? Enough to know this isn't just about bikers shaking down a bar. His voice lowered. I saw Blackwood. Her stomach clenched, so did I. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Two survivors of different wars, different scars, bound by the same truth. Blackwood's presence wasn't coincidence. You knew him? Asked carefully. He was my she admitted. The words scraped out jagged. 5 years ago, Valley. His jaw tightened. The ambush. Yes. Her throat felt raw. Saying it aloud threatened to drag her back into the dust and smoke. But she held his gaze, steady despite the ache. He's not just retired, said. He's running something. Wolves are just the muscle, he's the mind. Alexis's fingers curled into fists, which means Granite Falls is bait. A quiet town no one's watching, perfect cover. Leaned closer. His eyes were sharp but his voice softened. Why are you here, Alexis? Why hide in a bar of all places? She could have lied, could have deflected. But something in his tone, curiosity tinged with compassion, broke through her defenses. Because I couldn't live with it, she said. Not after what happened, not after. His name cracked her voice. She looked away. You think you should die too, said quietly. Her silence was answer enough. Exhaled slow, he wouldn't have wanted that. You didn't see it, she snapped, emotion bleeding through. You didn't hear him give the order. You didn't see him stay behind while I ran. Her voice shook. She forced it lower. I carry his tag every day, and every day I wonder why it's his name on the steel instead of mine. For a long moment said nothing. Then he placed something on the desk between them, a photograph. Smiling younger, arms slung around shoulders, both men in uniform. I lost him too, said softly. But carrying that weight alone doesn't honor him, it just breaks you. Alexis stared at the photo, her chest tight. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with grief and memory. But before she could speak, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, a single message. We know who you are. Her blood went cold. She shoved the phone into her pocket, forcing her voice steady. We don't have much time. If Blackwood's digging into my past, it won't take long before he connects the dots. Straightened, then we hit first. Alexis met his eyes. You're not military anymore. Why are you here? He hesitated. Because saved me once too. Different time, different place. I owe him. And if Blackwood's behind what happened in Valley, I need to know. We both do. Her chest tightened. For years she had carried the weight of survival alone. And now, suddenly, she wasn't the only one hunting the truth. For the first time in a long time, she felt the faint flicker of something dangerous. Hoping. That night Alexis drove out beyond the ridge with. The stars were sharp against the black sky, the air carrying the scent of pine. They parked half a mile from the sawmill, moving on foot the rest of the way. It wasn't a full assault, not yet, just reconnaissance. But Alexis's body thrummed with the familiar rhythm of an op. Silence, cover, observation. Moved well beside her. He was chimera, but his training was real. From a low ridge they watched trucks roll in. Men unloading crates, voices carrying. Alexis counted numbers, weapons, movement patterns. Sketched them quickly in a small notebook. One crate cracked open under the dim light. Inside, rifles, not just any rifles, military issue, new. Alexis's breath caught. She knew that hardware. Too new to be stolen off some convoy, too clean to be surplus. Blackwood wasn't just working with bikers, he was moving weapons. And if the serial numbers still tied back to government stockpiles, this wasn't just corruption, it was treason. Whisper cut through the night, we need proof. Alexis nodded. She raised her phone, snapped photos silently. Faces, crates, serial numbers glinting under light. Then a voice barked an order. Men turned. A spotlight swung. "Movement," one shouted. The beam swept the ridge. "Go," Alexis hissed. They ran low and fast. Bullets cracked against rock behind them. Dirt kicked up, sharp and hot. Alexis veered left, right, splitting instinctively. Shouts echoed, engines roared to life. She slid down an embankment, branches tearing at her clothes, heart pounding. Her boots struck gravel, pain shot up her leg, but she kept moving. A truck engine revved closer, lights flaring. She dove into a drainage ditch, chest pressed against the cold earth as headlights swept past. Silence again, her pulse thundered. Appeared minutes later, crouching low. His cheek was cut, blood streaking, but his eyes burned. He clutched the notebook. "Got enough," he panted. Alexis checked her phone, images clear, proof undeniable. But they both knew what it meant. Blackwood wasn't guessing anymore. He'd know someone was watching. And once he realized Alexis Morgan was alive, the war she had left behind would come crashing into Granite Falls. Back at her apartment, Alexis closed the blinds, set the photos on the table, dropped into a chair, wincing at his ribs. "We should take this federal," he said. "FBI, ATF, someone who'll listen." "They won't," Alexis replied. Her voice was bitter. "Not without hard evidence, not without tying it directly to Blackwood. And you think you can?" "I don't have a choice." She sank into the chair across from him, rubbing her temples. "I wanted to stay hidden. I wanted to believe I could just be normal, but I'm not. And now," she glanced at the photos, "now there's no hiding." His gaze softened. "Then maybe it's time to stop running." Her eyes lifted to his. For the first time in 5 years, she let herself consider it. Not running. Fighting. At Whiskey River the next morning, studied Alexis as she served coffee. His voice was quiet but steady. "You're different," he said, "since yesterday." Alexis paused. "How so?" "Less hiding," said simply, "more ready." Her chest tightened. He'd seen through her, again. He set his mug down. "Whoever you were before this place, you don't have to tell me, but don't carry it alone." She swallowed hard. She wanted to tell him everything, about Chimera, about Blackwood, but before she could speak, the door opened. And Vincent Harding walked in, alone. He approached the bar slowly, his eyes fixed on her. "Morning," he said. "We need to talk." The room went silent. Alexis set the coffee pot down, her heart steady but her hands coiled. This was it. The mask was slipping for good. Why had he come alone? That was Alexis's first thought as Vincent Harding slid onto across from her. No men flanking him, no motorcycles rumbling outside, just him, calm, composed, his silver wolf ring catching the morning light. A predator didn't always arrive with a pack. Sometimes he walked into the pasture by himself, because he already owned it. "Coffee?" Harding said smoothly. Alexis poured without speaking, setting the cup in front of him. She noticed his hands. No tremor, no hesitation. He was comfortable here, too comfortable. Shifted near the register, paused mid-step from the stairs. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. Harding took a sip, grimaced faintly, then set the cup down. "Strong, bitter, suits the morning." "What do you want?" Alexis asked, her tone level, clipped. His eyes lifted to hers, sharp as glass. "A conversation." "You had one yesterday." "Yesterday was an introduction," Harding said. "Today is clarity." He leaned back slightly, studying her. "I run the wolves, but I don't tolerate chaos. Carter and his boys, that was chaos. I apologize for their behavior." The word hit the air strangely. Apology. From a man who had threatened to carve open the night before. Alexis didn't respond. She waited. Harding smiled faintly. "You're not like the others, I can see it. The way you move, the way you calculate, that's not bartending, that's discipline." His gaze sharpened, the tone dropping lower. "That's training." stiffened behind him, catching the implication. His jaw tightened. Alexis's pulse remained steady, but inside something coiled. Harding was testing her, pressing for cracks. "You should know," Harding continued, "I did some digging. Government files are hard to access, but whispers are everywhere, especially when someone doesn't belong in a town like Granite Falls." He leaned forward, elbows on the bar. "So tell me, Alexis Morgan, what exactly are you hiding?" For a moment, silence pressed against her ribs. She wanted to tell him nothing, to let him choke on his curiosity, but she saw worry's wide eyes. If Harding decided to play his cards here, they would pay the price. So she met his stare, voice cool. "You're mistaking me for someone interesting." Harding chuckled softly. "I don't make mistakes." He finished his coffee, slid the cup forward. Then he stood, adjusting his jacket. "Keep your head down, bartender," he said. "Because when the storm breaks, I'd hate for you to be standing in the open." He tapped the bar once with his ring, then walked out. The door swung shut. Silence lingered. Exhaled sharply. "He knows." "Not yet," Alexis said, but her voice was tight. "He suspects, and that's enough." His eyes burned into her. "Then you need to decide. Are you going to keep pretending, or are you going to tell us the truth before he uses it against you?" Alexis looked at him, then at their faces, their fear. She thought of his words the night before, "Stop running." Her throat tightened. "Not here," she said, "not now." And she walked into the back office before the cracks showed. That night was waiting on the ridge again, notebook in hand. Alexis parked beside him, the cool wind biting her cheeks. "You saw him?" asked. She nodded, came into the bar, alone, asked questions he shouldn't have. Swore under his breath. "Then it's moving faster than I thought." Alexis sat on a fallen log, staring at the valley below. The sawmill glowed faintly in the distance, trucks still moving in and out. "He's digging," she murmured. "Blackwood probably feeding him intel." "Or using him as cover," said. "Blackwood's too smart to show his face unless he wants it seen." They sat in silence for a moment. The night sounds filled the gaps, wind through pine, an owl's call, the faint hum of engines down below. Finally spoke. "You ever think maybe this isn't about Granite Falls at all?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" "What if this town's just staging ground? They don't need a bar or a sheriff who looks the other way. They need quiet roads, out-of-the-way airfields, places no one checks." Her stomach turned. He was right. The wolves weren't about territory, they were about logistics, smuggling routes. "Then whatever's coming," she said, "is bigger than us." His gaze was steady. "So we make it not bigger than us. We hit them where it hurts, disrupt, expose. You've got training, I've got contacts, together." He let the thought trail. Alexis didn't answer immediately. She thought of Blackwood's face. The colonel who had once commanded her, now commanding criminals. The man who had sent into a valley he never left. Her chest burned. "I'm not doing this for Granite Falls," she said finally. "I'm doing this for him." Didn't ask who, he already knew. The next day, Alexis found herself standing in front of sheriff's office. The old brick building looked tired, its paint chipped, the flag above it faded. She stepped inside, looked up from paperwork, startled. "Morgan," he said, "didn't expect to see you." "Then maybe you should ask why." He frowned. "Something happened." She studied him, the sweat at his temple, the way his hand lingered near the desk drawer, where she knew he kept his service pistol. "You're in over your head," she said softly. "The wolves aren't just extorting businesses. They're running weapons, military grade, you know it. And you're either too scared to stop it or you're on someone's payroll." His jaw tightened. "Careful now." "Careful is what gets people killed," Alexis shot back. "I've buried enough to know." The silence between them stretched. Finally exhaled, slumping slightly in his chair. "You don't know what you're up against," he muttered. "Blackwood, he's not just some biker's puppet master, he's connected. Washington, contracts, money flowing places you and I can't touch. If I move against him, I'm dead before my badge hits the desk." Alexis leaned closer, voice ablade. "Then don't move, but when I do, you stay out of my way." He met her stare. Something flickered there, shame maybe, or resignation. "You'll get yourself killed," he said. "Maybe," she replied, "but I've been dead before." She turned and left before he could answer. That night, Alexis sat alone in her apartment, his dog tag pressed to her palm. She remembered his laugh, the rare, easy one when the weight of mission slipped. She remembered his hand on her shoulder after their first firefight, steadying her. She remembered the dust, the roar, his voice giving her that final order, "Go." She had gone. And now, 5 years later, she felt him here. Not as a ghost to haunt, but as a compass pointing toward a path she couldn't ignore. Her phone buzzed. "Got something, meet me." She grabbed her jacket, slipped the knife into her boot, and left. They met near the train tracks outside town, under a sky bruised with storm clouds. Held up a small USB drive. "Intercepted a comm," he said. "Encrypted, but I cracked enough. Blackwood's planning a shipment tomorrow night. Not just rifles, drones, surveillance-grade, military prototypes." Alexis felt her stomach twist. That's not smuggling, that's escalation. Exactly. He's not just selling weapons, he's selling an advantage. Whoever buys these isn't just armed, they're prepared. Lightning flashed on the horizon, thunder rolling after. Alexis's jaw tightened. "Where?" "Airstrip north of town, midnight." Her heart hammered. "Midnight, one day." His voice lowered. "This is our chance, expose it, stop it." The rain began to fall, cold and sharp. Alexis tilted her face upward, letting it wash over her. 5 years ago, she had walked away from war, but war had followed her. And now, for the first time, she wasn't running. She looked at her, voice steady. "Then we hit them tomorrow." He nodded. "Together." At Whiskey River the next morning, approached Alexis behind the bar. Her voice was tentative. "Are you leaving?" Alexis blinked. "What makes you think that?" His eyes softened. "Because you look like someone who's already gone." Alexis hesitated. Then she reached into her pocket, pulled out his dog tag, and pressed it into his hand. "He saved me once," she said softly. "I never wanted anyone else to carry his weight, but if something happens tomorrow, keep this. Not as a burden, as proof that he lived." Stared at the tag, eyes shimmering. "Alexis." But Alexis turned away, pouring a drink for a customer who wasn't really there. She didn't trust herself to say more, because the truth was already burning in her chest. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Why did it feel like goodbye? That thought pressed against Alexis's chest as she laced her boots in the dim light of her apartment. Each knot tightened, felt final, like the kind of preparation she'd done before missions where not everyone came home. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the clock. She had promised herself she wouldn't go back to this life. No more operations. No more adrenaline that burned hotter than fear. No more nights wondering if the dawn would come. And yet here she was, preparing for one more. She slipped second dog tag, the copy she'd kept hidden, over her neck. The original still sat in his palm, safe, a token of trust she couldn't take back. But this one she would carry tonight. Because if she didn't return, she wanted at least one piece of him with her. The airstrip lay 12 miles north of Granite Falls, carved from an old crop duster field now serving private charters, and the occasional smuggling run no one dared question. Alexis and parked their vehicles a mile out and moved on foot through the fields. The night was cool, clouds dragging across the moon, stars faint and distant. The smell of cut grass clung to the air. Crouched near the ridge overlooking the tarmac, raising binoculars. 4 trucks already lined up, 2 planes, men moving crates from hangars. Harding, there. Alexis took the binoculars. Harding's frame was easy to spot, commanding, shoulders squared, barking orders. She scanned farther. At the edge of the hangar, half in shadow, stood a figure she knew before her brain caught up. Blackwood. He wore civilian clothes, but his posture was pure military. Hands clasped behind his back, head turning with calculated precision. He wasn't supervising. He was orchestrating. Alexis lowered the binoculars, her breath caught between her teeth. He's here. His jaw tightened. Then this isn't a drop, this is a showcase. What do you mean? He's not just selling weapons, he's proving capability. Drones, firearms, maybe more. Whoever his buyers are, they're watching tonight. Alexis felt her stomach twist. This wasn't about Granite Falls at all. Had been right. The wolves were a staging ground for something larger. Her eyes tracked the guards, armed, spread across the tarmac. Not sloppy this time, disciplined. Too disciplined for bikers. These aren't just wolves, Alexis murmured. These are contractors. Which means Blackwood has resources deeper than we thought, exhaled sharply. So how do we play it? She studied the field, mapping paths in her head, calculating cover, timing patrols. Old instincts came alive. We don't hit them head on. We gather, we expose. Proof is our weapon, not bullets. Smirked faintly, spoken like someone who used to command. Her throat tightened. She hadn't commanded, she was just the one who lived. But she didn't correct him. They waited until the truck stopped moving, until crates were stacked, until the men gathered near the hangar. Harding shouted instructions, men laughed, the buzz of engines filled the night. Alexis slipped from cover, moving low, followed close behind. They wove through tall grass until the fence loomed. She clipped the wire silently, pushed through. The hum of voices grew louder. Near the hangar, crates stood half open. Alexis crouched behind one, phone raised, snapping images. Serial numbers, military seals, drone components gleaming under floodlights. Filmed quietly, his breath steady. She felt the pulse of the mission in her veins, every sense alive, every nerve burning. Then she heard it. Bring her out. Blackwood's voice, commanding, cold. Alexis froze, blood turning to ice. She risked a glance past the crates. Two men dragged someone from a truck. A woman, blindfolded, hands bound. Alexis's chest seized. Stumbled, terrified, her voice muffled by tape across her mouth. Harding shoved her forward, forcing her to her knees on the tarmac. This is what happens when people forget who's in charge, Harding announced, his voice carrying. Reed's daughter thinks she can question us. She'll remind the town what silence costs. Alexis's heart slammed against her ribs. This wasn't just business anymore. It was personal. Harding had taken her. Blackwood had allowed it. Beside her whispered, "We can't wait, they'll kill her." Alexis's mind raced. Logic said extraction was impossible. Too many armed men, too much ground. But her body had already decided. She couldn't lose, not like she'd lost. Not again. Stay here, Alexis whispered. Caught her arm. You'll never make it alone. I have to. Before he could argue, she moved. She ghosted from crate to shadow, every step calculated, every movement precise. Her pulse roared, but her mind was steady. This wasn't fear, it was focus. Closer, 10 yards, 5. Harding drew his pistol, leveling it at, any last words, sweetheart. Alexis's knife flashed. She slashed the floodlight cable, plunging half the tarmac into shadow. Chaos erupted, men shouting, weapons raised. She sprinted forward, dropped low, swept Harding's legs. His gun skittered across the pavement. She drove her elbow into his chest, yanking back as Harding hit the ground with a grunt. Gunfire exploded. Sparks flew as bullets struck metal. Alexis dragged behind a crate, ripping the tape from her mouth. Run when I say, Alexis ordered, cutting her bindings with a swift motion. His voice shook. You shouldn't be here. I never left, Alexis breathed. Appeared at their flank, firing 2 precise shots that dropped approaching guards. His voice was sharp. We're blown, move. They ran. Bullets chased them across the tarmac, men shouting, engines roaring. Alexis shielded with her body, each step burning, lungs heaving, covered their flank, moving with ruthless efficiency. A truck roared to block their path. Alexis grabbed, shoved her into a drainage ditch, rolled in after her as bullets shredded the dirt above. Her heart hammered, gasped, tears streaking her face, slid in beside them, breath ragged. They'll hunt us, he said. Then we make it a hunt they regret, Alexis snapped. Through the night they crawled, slipped, and ran, using shadows as cover. Guards fanned out, flashlights sweeping the fields. Voices barked orders, dogs barked in the distance. At one point, Alexis froze as a beam passed inches above her head. Trembled, her breath shallow. Alexis squeezed her hand gently. Quiet, trust me. The light moved on. They waited, then crept farther until the ridge loomed ahead. Hauled up, guiding her to cover. Alexis followed, body burning but mind locked. Only when they reached the safety of the tree line did she allow herself to exhale. Collapsed against a rock, shaking. They'll kill Dad, they'll kill everyone. Alexis knelt in front of her, gripping her shoulders. Not if I stop them, do you hear me? Not if I stop them. Searched her face, tears glinting. Who are you? For the first time, Alexis didn't lie. A soldier, like your father never knew, like your town was never meant to see. Lips parted, stunned. But Alexis turned away before the weight of truth could crush her. She looked down at the valley, where floodlights still burned, where Blackwood's silhouette stood watching. And she knew this wasn't finished. This was only the beginning. Later, back at her apartment, spread the photos across the table. Rifles, drones, Harding's face, Blackwood's shadow. This is enough to go federal, he said. With as witness, it's airtight. But Alexis shook her head. Her voice was flat, resolute. No, not yet. Frowned. What do you mean? This is evidence. This is survival. This is proof, Alexis corrected. But proof won't stop him. He's too connected, too clean. He'll bury it in red tape before it ever sees daylight. She touched the photo of Blackwood, her fingers trembling with restrained fury. We need more. We need him tied directly, caught in his own web. Her eyes lifted, steady as steel. And to do that, I need to face him. Studied her in silence, then he nodded slow. Then we face him together. She didn't answer, not with words. But in her chest, where the weight of grief had lived for years, something shifted. Not lighter, not easier, but clearer. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice. And maybe, just maybe, redemption. Why hadn't he killed her? That was the thought burning in Alexis's mind as she stared at the photographs again, scattered across her apartment table. Blackwood had seen her at the airstrip. She knew it. She felt his eyes cut through the shadows as she pulled away. A commander didn't miss details like that. So why was she still breathing? The answer was worse than a bullet. Because Blackwood wasn't finished with her yet. By morning, Granite Falls felt heavier. The wolves were everywhere, patrolling the streets in pairs, parked outside the grocery store, lingering near bar like vultures scenting blood. Harding's subtle reign of fear had become open intimidation. But beneath it, Alexis saw cracks, shopkeepers avoiding eye contact, neighbors whispering behind closed doors. The town was afraid, but fear had a limit, and fear, once pushed far enough, became anger. At Whiskey River, poured coffee with shaky hands, clung close to him, pale but defiant. Alexis slipped behind the counter, forcing her voice steady. They won't stop, she said. They'll keep pushing until something breaks. Looked at her tired eyes, searching. And what happens then? She hesitated. Then someone fights back. His voice cut in, soft but fierce. You mean you? Alexis didn't deny it. That night returned with word. They know it was you, he said, tossing a folded note onto her table. Harding's men tagged your bike. They're spreading the story ex-military, AWOL, dangerous. They want to paint you as the threat, not them. Alexis unfolded the note. The handwriting was neat, precise. Alexis Morgan, Chimera Unit, Valley. Her breath caught. Only one man could fed Harding that level of detail. Blackwood's jaw clenched. He's not just exposing you, he's weaponizing your past. She dropped the paper onto the table. The name Chimera cut through her like glass. They weren't supposed to exist outside whispers. Blackwood had buried them deep. Yet here it was, dragged into daylight as leverage. Her voice was low. He's making me the enemy. Studied her, so what do you do? Alexis stared its dog tag in her palm. For years it had felt like a chain, dragging her down into grief. Tonight it felt like something else. A reminder. I stopped being afraid of what I am, she said. 2 days later, Harding summoned her. The call came through. A folded note on the counter, sealed with the wolf's crest. Midnight Old Quarry, come alone. His hands trembled as he handed it over. Don't go, he whispered. It's a trap. Alexis's lips curved in a humorless smile. Of course it is. Grabbed her sleeve. Then why? Because if I don't, Alexis said, they'll keep circling this bar until you pay the price. This ends with me, not you. His eyes glistened. You don't have to carry it alone. Alexis squeezed her hand gently. Yes, I do. The quarry lay abandoned, its walls jagged like the scars of a giant. Floodlights bathed the center in harsh white. Trucks lined the rim. Wolves leaned against them, rifles slung casual, eyes sharp. And in the middle, Harding waited. He looked almost ceremonial. Black jacket, silver wolf ring gleaming, a predator in his chosen arena. Alexis walked into the circle with steady steps. She carried no weapon visible, only the weight of her presence. Harding's smile was slow. I knew you weren't just a bartender. And I knew you weren't just a thug, Alexis replied. He chuckled. You've got spine, I like that, but spine breaks. Yours will too. Alexis tilted her head. If you had what you needed, I'd already be dead, so why am I here? Harding's eyes narrowed. For a moment the charm slipped, replaced by calculation. Because Blackwood wants you alive. The name cracked the air between them. Alexis's voice sharpened. Why? Harding smirked. Ask him yourself. A ripple passed through the wolves, and then out of the shadows Blackwood emerged. He looked older, gray dusting his hair, but his presence was unchanged. Authority clung to him like a second skin. He didn't carry a weapon. He didn't need to. Alexis, he said, voice smooth as stone, it's been a long time. Her body went rigid. You left him there. Blackwood's gaze was steady. Made his choice, so did you. You gave the order. Her throat tightened. You sent us into a valley rigged to burn. And you survived, Blackwood said evenly, which tells me I was right. Her stomach twisted. Right. He stepped closer, hands clasped behind his back. Chimera was an experiment. We needed to know what would endure. Who would endure wasn't strong enough. You were. That was the point. The words hit her like blows. Years of guilt, grief, survivor's shame, twisted into a sick design. You used us, she whispered. I tested you, Blackwood corrected. And look at you now, still alive, still dangerous, still mine whether you admit it or not. The wolves stirred uneasily, sensing the tension. Harding's smile had vanished. Alexis's voice was sharp, cutting. I'm not yours, I never was. Blackwood's eyes glinted. Then prove it. He turned his back and walked away, vanishing into the shadows beyond the floodlights. Harding stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. Looks like it's just you and me, bartender, he sneered. The wolves formed a circle, engines revved, the quarry became an arena. Harding lunged. The fight was brutal. Harding was stronger, heavier. Every strike rattled Alexis's bones, every block strained her muscles, but she was faster, precise. Years of training honed into instinct. He swung wild, she ducked low, drove a knee into his ribs. He roared, caught her arm, hurled her into the dirt. Pain exploded across her back. "Thought you were tough," Harding growled, looming. She spat blood, pushed to her feet. "Tough enough to bury you." He came again, fists like hammers. She slipped aside, drove an elbow into his jaw. His head snapped back, but he laughed, blood spraying his teeth. "You've got fire," he snarled, "but fire burns out." He slammed her against a truck, his forearm crushing her throat. Spots danced in her vision. She clawed at his grip, lungs screaming. Then she saw his dog tag glint at her neck. "Not yet." Her knee shot up, crushing Harding's groin. His grip faltered. She twisted, wrenched his arm, slammed him face first into the steel. He staggered, dazed. The wolves shouted, surging forward, only to halt as Harding raised a bloody hand. He wanted this fight. He needed it. He charged again. Alexis braced, used his momentum to flip him hard onto the ground. Dust rose. He wheezed, stunned. She planted a boot on his chest. Knife drawn from her boot in one swift motion, blade gleaming under floodlight. The wolves froze, silence. Her voice was steady, cold. "This ends with you, Harding." His eyes widened, not with fear but with twisted pride. "Do it. Show them who you really are." For a heartbeat she considered it, ending him, cutting the head of the wolves here and now. But's voice echoed in her memory, "Don't lose yourself." Her hand trembled, she sheathed the knife, stepped back. "This isn't your arena," she said, "it's mine." She turned and walked out of the circle. The wolves parted, stunned by her defiance. Harding coughed, bloodied, humiliated. And from the shadows, Blackwood watched. He was smiling. Back at her apartment, waited. His eyes widened when he saw her bruises. "You went," he said. She nodded, collapsing into a chair. Harding wanted blood. Blackwood wanted a show. I gave neither. Leaned forward. "So what does that mean?" Alexis touched the dog tag at her chest, her voice low. "It means this isn't over. Blackwood, not trying to kill me. He's trying to claim me, and that's more dangerous than any bullet." Her gaze hardened. "So now I have to take the fight to him. Why hadn't he stopped smiling?" That was the question echoing through Alexis's mind in the sleepless hours after the quarry. She could still see Blackwood's face in the shadows, calm, certain, proud, not angered by her defiance, not frustrated by Harding's humiliation. Smiling, because she had given him exactly what he wanted, proof that she was still what he had built, a weapon, a survivor. But she wasn't his, not anymore. The next morning, Granite Falls was tense as coiled wire. Rumors spread like smoke. Some said Harding had been beaten. Some said he had let her win. Others whispered that Blackwood had chosen her as his successor. And Alexis felt the weight of all of it. At Whiskey River, poured whiskey at noon with trembling hands. Barely spoke. The regulars came in, but their laughter was forced, nervous. The wolves had been in town all morning, revving engines outside stores, reminding everyone who owned them. But under the fear, Alexis sensed something else, a flicker of defiance. People were tired of being silent. And silence, once broken, never returned the same. That night came with news. "Harding, on edge," he said. "He's telling his men he'll take you down himself, but they're wavering. Some are questioning why they should bleed for him when Blackwood's the one pulling strings." Alexis leaned against the bar, arms folded. "So the wolves are fracturing." "Exactly." Eyes burned. "We use it, drive a wedge, force Blackwood to show his hand." Alexis shook her head. "He already has. Last night at the quarry, that was his move. He doesn't care if Harding wins or loses. Harding's expendable. This whole gang is expendable. Blackwood's real business is bigger." Frowned. "So how do we cut him off?" She exhaled slowly, gripping tag at her chest. "We don't. We drag him into the open. He built this empire in the shadows. We take away the shadows. Her eyes lifted to, we burn it all down. The plan came together faster than Alexis liked. But there was no choice. Blackwood was accelerating. The wolves were preparing another shipment. Not rifles this time. Not drones, something heavier. Contact had intercepted the chatter, explosives enough to flatten half a city block. Destination unknown, buyers unnamed. If it left Granite Falls, it would vanish into the undercurrent of war profiteers and mercenaries, another ghost in the global storm. So Alexis decided it wouldn't leave at all. She entracked the shipment to the sawmill outside town, the wolves' stronghold. Floodlights, patrols, trucks loaded with tarps and crates. Harding barked orders, his face still bruised from the quarry fight. He looked angrier, more desperate. And watching from a catwalk above the floor Blackwood. Alexis's pulse pounded. This was it. They moved at midnight, cut the power grid, plunging half the sawmill into shadow. Alexis slipped through the chaos like smoke, her knife flashing quick and silent. Wolves dropped one by one before alarms could rise. Inside the warehouse, engines roared, men shouted, flashlights cut the dark. Harding's voice bellowed, "Find her." And then Blackwood's calmer, sharper tone, "Don't, she'll come to me." He was right. Alexis ghosted through the rafters, heart steady, every nerve alive. She could feel him below, a gravitational pull. She wasn't hunting him, he was waiting. Her boots hit the catwalk. Blackwood turned, as if greeting an old ally. "Alexis." Her knife gleamed in her grip. "This ends tonight." He tilted his head. "Everything ends, the question is how." Harding stormed into view below, eyes wild, pistol raised. "She's mine." Blackwood didn't even look at him. "No, she was never yours." Alexis dropped from the catwalk, rolled, came up with the knife ready. Harding fired. She dove, the bullet tearing wood. She slammed into him, blade slicing his wrist. The gun clattered away. They crashed into crates, splinters flying. Harding roared, fist swinging. Alexis ducked, countered, struck his throat. He gagged, stumbled. Her knife pinned him against the crate, the blade at his jugular. His chest heaved. His eyes glared. "Do it," he spat, blood dribbling down his chin. "Kill me, soldier, show them what you are." Alexis froze. Around them, wolves watched, silent, uncertain, waiting to see which leader they should fear. She looked into Harding's eyes and saw nothing but hunger. Violence was his only truth. Killing him would make her part of it. Slowly she lowered the blade, stepped back. "You're not worth it," she said. Harding staggered forward, enraged, reaching for her throat. The gunshot split the air. Harding collapsed, a hole in his chest. Blood soaked the sawdust. Alexis spun. Blackwood held the pistol, smoke curling from the barrel. His face was calm, unflinching. "He was weak," Blackwood said. "He mistook chaos for control. You were right to spare him, but someone had to end it." The wolves stared, stunned. Their leader executed by the man above him. Alexis's voice cracked like steel. "So now it's just you and me." Blackwood's eyes gleamed. "Exactly as I planned." The fight was nothing like Harding's brute fury. Blackwood was precise, every strike calculated, every move rehearsed. He wasn't stronger, he was smarter. He knew her rhythm, her tactics, because he had built them. He blocked her strikes with surgical efficiency, countered with blows that rattled her bones. He moved like a commander dissecting an enemy piece by piece. "You're not fighting me," he said, breath calm. "You're fighting yourself." Her teeth clenched. "I'm fighting a man who should died with his honor." "Honor is a story for the weak," he snapped, striking her ribs, pain seared white. "Survival is the only truth." She staggered, dropping to one knee. His boot pressed her chest, pinning her to the floor. "Look at you," he said. "Still alive because of me, still fighting because of me. You carry tag, but you carry my design. You're not his legacy, you're mine." His pistol gleamed as he raised it, aiming at her skull. For a moment she felt the pull of surrender, the old weight of guilt pressing down, whispering that maybe he was right. Maybe her survival was nothing but his plan. Then she remembered's last order, go. Not survive, not obey, go. She twisted, slamming her boot into Blackwood's knee. He staggered, the pistol firing wild. She surged up, knife in hand, drove it into his shoulder. His roar echoed through the mill. The wolves shouted, chaos erupting. His rifle cracked from the shadows, dropping two men who charged forward. Scream carried from the doorway. She had come despite the danger, eyes wide with terror. Alexis tore the pistol from Blackwood's grip, shoving him back against a crate. The knife pressed his throat. This was it. One cut and it was over. His voice was hoarse but steady. Do it. You'll be exactly what I made you. Her hand trembled. She thought of Granite Falls. Of herself. Her voice shook but held. No, I'm not yours, I never was. She yanked the knife free, threw the pistol to the ground, and walked away. Blackwood staggered, bleeding, stunned not by pain, but by rejection. The wolves looked between them, confusion breaking their unity, their leader exposed, their chain of command shattered. His voice rang out sharp. You follow him, you die in prison. You walk away now, you live free. One by one, rifles dropped. Men peeled away, leaving Blackwood standing alone. He shouted after them, voice ragged, You're nothing without me. But they were already gone. By dawn, the wolves were finished. Harding dead, Blackwood bleeding, abandoned. Law enforcement, summoned by contacts, swept in, seizing the weapons, the drones, the explosives. Blackwood was led away in cuffs, his eyes never leaving Alexis. Not fury, not fear. Just that same cold smile. As if even defeat was part of his plan. Granite Falls woke to a different world. Engines were silent, wolves were gone, the town breathed again. At Whiskey River, laughter returned, cautious but real, poured drinks without shaking, smiled, faint but brighter than before. Leaned against the bar, weary but alive. It's over, he said. Alexis shook her head. No, it never really ends, but here maybe it's enough. She stepped outside, the morning light soft on her bruised face. The street was quiet, the sky wide. Her hand closed around Tag. She felt the weight, not as a chain, not as guilt. As memory. As love. She lifted her gaze, whispered into the breeze, I kept my promise. And for the first time in years, the weight didn't crush her. It carried her forward. Sometimes strength doesn't roar. Sometimes resilience isn't loud. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.